The aviary hung beneath the floating palace like a forgotten thought. High above the cloud seas, where dragons ruled the sky and stone towers curved like claws, there was a quiet place few visited anymore. It was filled with cages made of silver wire and old magic, each one holding rare birds gathered from many worlds. Once, nobles came to admire them. Now, the aviary existed only out of habit. Inside one of the highest cages sat two small birds. To any dragon passing by, they looked ordinary, dark-feathered, thin, and silent. They did not sing. They did not flutter much. They only watched. Inside those fragile bodies were minds that had once commanded storms. They were princes of the Drecarin sky throne, brothers born to fire and thunder. One had been a master of war, the other a keeper of law. Together, they were meant to rule. But dragon politics were sharp and unforgiving. Rivals feared their unity. Whispers turned to schemes, schemes to betrayal. They had been cursed, not killed. Death would have been kinder. Ancient runes had crushed their massive forms into the shapes of birds. Their wings were weak. Their flames were gone. Their voices were reduced to helpless chirps. Only their thoughts remained clear, forced to witness their fall every day. The curse fed on pride and despair. The more they raged, the tighter it held. For months, maybe longer, time blurred in the cage. Dragons came and went, never looking closely. To them, the birds were decorations, nothing more. No one spoke to them. No one cared if they lived or died. Then the human arrived. Her name was Lena. She was small compared to the dragons, thin from long hours of work, her clothes plain and worn. She had been assigned to clean the aviary, because no dragon wanted the task. It was beneath them, perfect for a human. The first day she came, she did not notice the birds right away. She swept fallen feathers and wiped dust from empty cages. Her steps were careful, respectful, as if the place still mattered. When she finally reached the brother's cage, she paused. "Oh," she said softly, "you're still here." Her voice was gentle. The princes stiffened. They had not heard a kind voice directed at them since the curse began. Lena brought fresh water and seeds. She cleaned the cage slowly, humming to herself without thinking. It was not a song meant to impress. It was something simple, something her mother had sung when the world felt heavy. The moment the sound filled the air, something shifted. The brothers felt it at the same time. A strange warmth spread through their chests. The crushing pressure of the curse loosened. Just a little. It was so small it could have been imagined, but it was real. They looked at each other through the bars. "Did you feel that?" One thought, "Yes." The other replied, "Impossible, yet undeniable." The song ended. The warmth faded. The curse tightened again. Lena finished her work and moved on, unaware that she had done something no dragon spell had achieved. The next day, she returned. And the next. Every day, she cleaned. Every day, she hummed or sang. Sometimes she talked to the birds, not expecting answers. "It must be lonely up here," she said once, wiping the cage. "I know how that feels." The princes listened. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. She did not speak down to them. She did not treat them as objects. She spoke as if they were alive. With each song, the curse weakened for a few moments. Their breathing became easier. Their thoughts felt clearer. Slowly, carefully, they tested their limits. On the seventh day, one of them managed a sound that was not a chirp. It was a broken, whispering word. "Human." Lena froze. She leaned closer, eyes wide. "Did you say something?" she asked, almost afraid to hope. The curse slammed down, punishing the attempt. Pain flashed through the prince's mind. He fell silent. Lena waited a moment, then smiled sadly. "I guess not," she said. "I talk too much anyway." She sang again, softer this time, as if to apologize. The brothers realized something important then. The curse reacted not with anger, but with fear. It resisted her presence. Humans were not part of its design. Dragons believed humans were weak because they had no natural magic. No scales. No claws. They ruled through fire and strength. But this curse, crafted by dragon sorcerers, had never accounted for something else: care. The days passed. Lena protected the aviary from neglect. When another servant suggested leaving the birds without food for a day to save time, she refused. "They're alive," she said firmly. "That should be enough." A lesser dragon overseer scoffed, but did not argue. Humans were easy to ignore, but the princes noticed everything. They noticed how Lena hid extra seeds in her pocket when supplies were cut, how she shielded the cages from cold drafts, how she sang even when her voice was tired. Her life was not easy. She worked long hours. She was often scolded. Yet she never brought anger into the aviary. One night, when the palace shook with distant thunder from dragon disputes, Lena stayed longer than usual. She sat on a stool near the cage. "I don't know why," she said quietly, "but this place feels important, like something's waiting." She sang then, a full song, slow and steady. This time, the curse cracked. The brothers felt it like glass breaking inside their minds. Power did not return, but awareness sharpened. For a brief moment, they could see magic threads around the cage. Hope surged, dangerous hope. They understood now. The curse was not broken by strength. It was undone by persistence without pride. Something dragons had never valued. When the song ended, Lena stood and stretched. "Sleep well," she said to the birds, smiling. "I'll be back tomorrow." After she left, the aviary was silent again. But it was no longer empty. The brothers spoke in thought, careful and calm. "A human," one said. "This changes everything." "Yes," the other replied. "And she does not even know it." Above them, the dragon empire continued as always, proud, loud, and blind. Below that pride, in a forgotten cage, the beginning of the end had already started. The next morning, the aviary felt different. The brothers sensed it before Lena arrived. The air itself seemed thinner, like something unseen had shifted during the night. The curse still held them in fragile bodies, still pressed down on their thoughts, but it no longer felt endless. There was a weakness now, a flaw. They waited. Footsteps echoed along the narrow bridge leading to the aviary. Lena appeared, carrying a small basket of feed and a cloth over her shoulder. She looked more tired than usual, dark circles under her eyes, but when she stepped inside, her face softened. "Good morning," she said, as she always did. "I hope you slept well." She began her routine, moving from cage to cage. As she worked, she hummed. The sound was quiet at first, almost uncertain. When she reached the brothers' cage, she paused. "You two are strange," she said gently. "You listen like you understand." The song grew steadier. The warmth returned. This time, it lasted longer. The brothers focused not on breaking free, but on remaining calm. Pride had been their strength once. Now they understood it had also been their weakness. The curse fed on anger and hunger for power. Lena's presence brought neither. Slowly, painfully, one of them tried again. "Thank you." "No." The word slipped out, faint and rough. Lena gasped and nearly dropped the basket. She leaned close, eyes wide, heart pounding. That sounded like..." The curse struck back, sharp and cruel. Pain burned through the prince's thoughts. His wings trembled. The warmth vanished. Lena stepped back, fear flashing across her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to scare you." She did not call for help. She did not shout. She stayed. That choice mattered more than she could know. She finished cleaning with shaking hands, then sat on the stool again. She did not sing right away. Instead, she spoke softly, as if calming herself. "Even if I imagined it," she said, "it was nice, being thanked." She smiled, small and sad, and began to sing. The curse resisted, but weaker now. After that day, Lena changed. She started coming earlier, before the overseers arrived. She brought better seeds, bits of fruit hidden in cloth. She cleaned the brothers' cage more carefully than any other, not because she suspected what they were, but because she felt drawn to them. The brothers watched her closely. Humans, they realized, were observant in quiet ways. Lena noticed things dragons never did. A crack in a wire. A draft from a broken window. The way one bird favored a wing. She also noticed cruelty. One afternoon, a young dragon noble entered the aviary with friends. They laughed loudly, mocking the cages. "What a useless place," one said. "Why keep these things alive?" Another flicked a finger toward a cage, startling the birds inside. Lena stiffened. "Please don't," she said, keeping her voice respectful. The dragon glanced at her, surprised a human had spoken. "They're birds," he said. "They don't matter." "They do," Lena replied. The words were simple. The room went quiet. For a moment, the dragon looked like he might punish her. Instead, he scoffed and turned away. "Clean faster next time," he said, leaving. Lena exhaled slowly, hands trembling. The brothers felt the curse shake again, not from the dragon's presence but from Lena's defiance. That night, Lena stayed late. Storm clouds gathered below the palace, flashing with distant lightning. Dragons argued far above, their voices rumbling through stone. Lena sang louder than usual, her voice steady despite the fear around her. The brothers pushed together, their thoughts aligned. Together, they spoke. "Lena." The sound was weak, but clear. She froze. Slowly, she turned. "Yes?" she whispered. The curse struck like a hammer. The pain was unbearable. One of the brothers collapsed against the cage floor. The other forced himself to remain upright. Lena rushed closer, tears in her eyes. "I don't know what you are," she said, voice shaking. "But I won't leave you like this." She placed her hand on the cage. The metal should have burned her. It did not. The curse recoiled. For a heartbeat, the brothers saw her clearly, not as a servant, not as weak, but as something rare. A being who chose kindness even when it cost her. That night, after Lena left, the brothers understood the truth. The curse was built to break dragons. It stripped power, identity, pride. But it assumed despair would follow. Humans endured despair as part of life. They did not collapse under it, they sang through it. Days passed. Word spread among servants that Lena cared too much about the aviary. Supplies were reduced further. She argued when she could, obeyed when she had to, and compensated quietly when no one watched. Her body grew tired, but her voice never stopped. The brothers began to regain fragments of their magic, not fire, not flight, but perception. They could sense lies. They could feel tension in the palace. They knew something dangerous was coming. A purge. Dragon politics shifted like storms. Rivals moved openly now. Old supporters vanished. The brothers' enemies were consolidating power, erasing traces of the past, including the aviary. One morning, Lena arrived to find a notice burned into the wall. The aviary would be cleared. All birds removed. Lena stared at the mark, her heart racing. Removed meant destroyed. She stood there for a long time, then straightened her shoulders. "No," she said aloud. That day, she sang like never before. Her voice filled the aviary, strong and clear, echoing through metal and stone. The brothers felt the curse crack wider than ever before. Light bled through the invisible chains binding them. They spoke together, carefully, slowly. "We are not birds." Lena fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear, but from relief. "I knew," she whispered. "I didn't know how, but I knew you mattered." The curse screamed. Outside, wings beat the air. Dragons approached. The brothers gathered what little strength they had left. Not yet, they thought. But soon. Lena stood, wiping her face. She placed herself in front of the cage. "You'll have to go through me," she said quietly, as footsteps entered the aviary. Above them all, the Dragon Empire moved closer to a truth it had never prepared for. Humanity was not powerless. It was patient. Storm clouds gathered over the floating palace like dark, rolling oceans, casting long shadows across the aviary. The air smelled of rain and ozone. heavy with tension. Lena arrived early, as she always did, carrying her basket of feed and a soft cloth. Her steps were light but determined. She did not know it, but each day she came closer to changing the fate of dragons and humans alike. The brothers, still trapped in fragile bodies, felt the tension too. Their senses, sharpened by the remnants of their magic, detected every tremor, every draft, every sound in the vast, empty hall. Lena's presence gave them courage they had not felt in months longer, perhaps even longer than that. "Good morning," Lena said quietly, setting down the basket. "I think it's going to storm today. You might like the rain outside, though." The younger brother tilted his tiny head. Rain? A human spoke of rain as if it mattered. His memory flashed he had once commanded storms, bending winds and clouds at his will. Yet here, he was a bird, and rain was just a sound, a smell, a touch on fragile feathers. Lena hummed softly, cleaning the cage bars with gentle hands. The song seemed to ripple through the brothers' thoughts, loosening the chains of the curse in ways no magic had before. Each note was a whisper of hope, a reminder that even in confinement, the world outside could be gentle. Suddenly, movement at the far end of the aviary drew Lena's attention. A young dragon servant had entered, flanked by a few others, their laughter sharp and mocking. "What are you doing here, human?" one asked, a sneer twisting his face. "The aviary will be cleared." "Go away." "I cannot," Lena replied calmly. "Not while they are here." The brothers felt the surge of her resolve. They had underestimated humans. It was not strength that mattered. It was persistence. The ability to act when no one else would. The servant scowled, stepping closer. His hand reached toward one of the cages. Lena moved in front of it. "They are alive," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "You cannot touch them." The dragons froze. The human's defiance was not loud or violent, but precise, unwavering. They had not anticipated that courage could exist in a creature so small, so ordinary by their standards. The brothers chirped softly, almost instinctively. It was not a sound of weakness, but a plea. Lena bent closer, brushing a feather with her fingers. "They can hear you," she whispered. "If you fight, you will only hurt yourselves. Wait. Trust me." For the first time, the brothers noticed something remarkable. Her voice, her presence, was not just soothing, it was strengthening them. The curse recoiled. It could not bear human care, human persistence, human hope. The servant sneered again, but Lena held her ground. "I will not leave them," she said. "If you force me, you will answer for it." The brothers shared a thought. Perhaps the world could change. Perhaps it could start here, in this forgotten aviary, with a human's voice as the spark. Days passed, and the threat of removal continued. Lena adjusted her schedule, arriving before anyone else. She brought extra water, hidden fruit, seeds she saved from her own rations. She cleaned every corner with care, humming songs that carried strength, kindness, and endurance. The brothers learned to respond carefully. They tested the limits of their forms, pecking gently at her hands, chirping faint notes, trying to communicate. Each attempt caused the curse to strike back, sending waves of pain through their fragile bodies. But Lena never gave up. One evening, as the palace trembled with distant arguments and storms, Lena stayed late. She sat before the cage, exhausted, her voice rising over the rumble of thunder. She sang not because she expected anything, but because it felt right. The brothers felt it immediately. Power, not full flight or fire, but awareness and clarity flashed through their minds. They had almost forgotten how it felt to think clearly, to plan, to anticipate. Lena's song restored fragments of themselves. And then, faintly, the unthinkable happened. "Human," one whispered, clearer than before. Lena froze, eyes wide. She leaned closer. "Did you?" The words were faint, broken, and full of pain. The curse struck violently, But she did not flee. She stayed, placing her hand on the cage. "I will not abandon you," she said, "no matter what happens." That moment shattered something deep in the curse. The brothers realized they could feel beyond their bodies, beyond the cage, beyond the walls. They sensed the empire outside, the politics that threatened them, and most importantly, the threat that Lena had unknowingly placed herself in by defending them. They began to plan. Small gestures at first, alerting her when a shadow fell too close, subtly guiding her hands to a cracked bar. They could not fight yet, but they could protect, in the smallest of ways. The next morning brought new danger. Palace servants had been ordered to remove the birds. The aviary would be emptied. If Lena did not act, the brothers knew they would be destroyed. Lena arrived, basket in hand, and immediately noticed the signs. Missing perches, displaced cages, and the cold, formal eyes of the overseer. Her heart tightened, but she did not panic. Instead, she set the basket down and began to sing, louder than ever. Her voice carried through metal and stone, through dust and magic. The brothers felt the power surge. The curse quivered, weakened, and for the first time, they could move more freely inside their cages. One of them managed to flutter to the side, landing lightly on a perch near Lena's hand. "Do not leave," he thought, not daring to speak aloud. She understood. Somehow, she always understood. Her hand extended, brushing the tiny feathers. "I will not," she said. "I promise." The overseer entered, steps echoing sharply. Lena did not flinch. She stood in front of the cage, her voice firm, her presence resolute. "They are alive," she said. "You cannot touch them." The overseer scowled. "You defy the throne," he said. "You will be punished." "I will face whatever comes," Lena replied, "but I will not abandon them." The brothers felt something new: hope. Not hope for themselves, but hope that humans could change the world in ways dragons could not. The first clash came quietly. A shadow fell across the cage. The overseer raised his hand. The brothers pushed against the curse, flapping fragile wings. Lena's voice rose in tandem with their effort. Light, invisible and bright, shimmered around the cages. The overseer recoiled, startled. His magic, meant to enforce, faltered in the presence of something he had never understood. Human persistence and courage amplified by the bond between the singer and the birds. The brothers chirped together, in unison for the first time. The sound was almost musical, carrying fragments of their former power, their thoughts, their will. Lena matched them with her voice, steady and unwavering. The overseer stumbled back. For a moment, silence fell. Then, slowly, he withdrew, muttering threats he could not enforce. The aviary was safe. For now. The brothers perched near Lena, hearts beating in sync with her song. They had not broken the curse yet. They were still small, fragile, and vulnerable. But they had gained something more important: control over despair, and a glimpse of freedom. Night came. Rain tapped on the aviary roof. Lena stayed, her voice soft but continuous, filling every corner. The brothers listened, absorbing each note, each vibration, each beat of the human heart that refused to surrender. They shared a thought together. Humanity was different. Weak in appearance, perhaps, but unyielding in spirit. If dragons could be overpowered by pride and magic, humans could outlast even the strongest curses simply by enduring and caring. The first spark of rebellion had begun. Tomorrow, the aviary would face new threats. Dragons would test their strength, their authority, and their assumptions about humans. But tonight, the brothers were reminded of something they had long forgotten. Power was not only in fire or claws. Power was in patience, in kindness, in courage that did not need to roar. And Lena was their spark. For the first time since the curse, the brothers allowed themselves a quiet thought of hope. Maybe, just maybe, freedom was not impossible. And if freedom came, the world would never be the same. The dawn broke slowly over the floating palace, spilling pale light across the aviary. Rain had passed, leaving the air crisp and heavy with the scent of wet stone and clouds. Lena arrived as always, carrying her basket and cloth. Though her steps were lighter today, guided by a sense she could not name, she felt something in the air. A vibration that was not fear, not worry, but promise. The brothers, still trapped in small, fragile bird bodies, had never felt the morning like this. They perched close together, listening, alert, their minds buzzing with fragments of their former power. Each note of Lena's humming seemed to carry them farther from the cage, closer to the edge of freedom. "Good morning," Lena said softly, placing the basket down. She paused, her eyes sweeping the room. Something had shifted here. Something unseen. "I think today will be a good day," she whispered, almost to herself. The brothers chirped in agreement, a tiny sound that carried weight. They felt the cage trembling not from storms, but from a force far older and stronger. The curse itself. It had sensed that its control was weakening, its hold challenged by a human heart and voice. Throughout the morning, Lena worked, humming and singing as she cleaned. She spoke gently to the birds, telling them about the palace, about the rain outside, about the world she had glimpsed beyond the floating walls. Every word, every note, fed into the fragile threads of magic that still bound the brothers. Slowly, painfully, they stretched their wings within the limits of their bodies. Then came the moment the aviary had been waiting for. The palace guards arrived, ordered to remove the birds, to empty the aviary entirely. Lena noticed their approach first, seeing the glint of metal in their hands and the imperious set of their jaws. She stood straight, determination firm in her stance. "They are alive," she said simply, meeting the eyes of the lead guard. "You will not touch them," the guard scoffed, raising his hand. "This is not your concern, human. Step aside, or face consequences." "I will not," Lena replied. Her voice rang clear, unwavering. "They are not objects. They are alive. I will protect them." The brothers felt the surge of her courage, and something unexpected happened. The chains of the curse, fragile as they had grown, began to tremble. A faint glow shimmered around the cage. Like sunlight through a thin veil, they tried something they had not dared before. Together, in unison, they flapped their wings, their minds focusing, calling on the fragments of their former magic. Fire did not roar, but awareness bloomed. The world beyond the bars seemed clearer, sharper. The cage no longer felt like a prison. It was merely a test. Lena continued to sing. Louder now, her voice merging with the fragile resonance of the brothers' effort. The air shimmered around them, a soft light wrapping the cages, bending the shadows of the aviary. The lead guard hesitated, sensing the change. His magic, meant to enforce obedience, faltered in the presence of something he could not understand. Human persistence, amplified by a bond stronger than fear. He stepped back, uncertain. The brothers pushed further. The curse recoiled. Metal bent subtly, wire straining against invisible forces. Lena's voice rose in harmony with theirs, steady and resolute. And then, the impossible happened. The cages shattered. Silver wires bent and snapped. Light filled the aviary. Where once there had been small, fragile birds, there now stood two dragons. One was tall, golden-scaled, eyes like molten fire. The other darker, sleek, with wings that shimmered like polished obsidian. Both looked down at Lena, not with arrogance or judgment, but with awe. You freed us?" The golden one whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. I just sang," Lena said, astonished. "I didn't know." "You did," the darker one said firmly. "You gave us hope when none remained. That is more powerful than any spell, any dragon pride." The palace guards fled, fear rooting them to the floor. Other dragons appeared in the hallways, drawn by the light and sound. They had never seen such an event. Never imagined a human could defy dragons in this way. Murmurs of disbelief spread quickly. The brothers turned to Lena. The Empire underestimated humans, the Golden One said softly. We did too. But no more. Not again. The human heart, they realized, carried strength dragons could not destroy. It was patient, compassionate, enduring. It healed, it nurtured, it fought quietly when no one else would. The rain outside had cleared, leaving sunlight to fall in shafts across the palace. Lena, still standing amidst the broken cages, looked at the dragons who had once been small birds. She felt awe, yes, but also a quiet understanding. This was not about grandeur or fear. This was about life, about choices, about kindness prevailing over cruelty. The brothers moved with grace now, their wings stretching fully for the first time. They tested their flight within the high hall, careful not to touch Lena. She stepped back, smiling, tears in her eyes, but steady. Come with us, one said finally, his golden scales catching the light. See the world as we see it. Lena shook her head gently. I belong here. This aviary. These birds. This work. It is mine. But you belong to the skies. The dragons understood. Respect was not something they demanded. It was something they learned from the human who had saved them. Word spread quickly across the palace and beyond. Humans were no longer seen as weak or unimportant. Their courage, patience, and empathy had reshaped the balance of power. The brothers, restored to their true forms, began to change the laws of the empire. They decreed protections for humans, ensuring they would never again be treated as mere tools or servants. Every palace and settlement would honor the quiet strength of those who worked, who cared, who persevered. Lena continued her life in the aviary. She did not seek fame or reward. She sang each day, tending to new birds, teaching them to survive, to endure, to hope. Her voice became a symbol, a reminder that even the smallest actions could ripple across empires. The brothers visited often. They watched the humans with pride, aware of what had been achieved. They had power, yes, but now tempered with wisdom. They knew the empire would be safer, kinder, stronger, because of humanity's quiet influence. One evening, as the sun set and the clouds painted the skies with orange and violet, Lena sang in the open air of the aviary. The brothers perched near the entrance. Wings folded, eyes bright. The palace below remained bustling with dragons, but above them, the air was calm. For the first time in generations, dragons and humans stood together not as rulers and servants, not as masters and subjects, but as beings capable of change, capable of hope, capable of building a better world. The brothers shared a thought together. Human strength was not in fire or claws, not in domination or conquest. It was in endurance, in kindness, in a willingness to act, even when the world overlooked them. Lena did not need to know the full truth. Her songs had shaped destiny. Her care had healed curses. Her patience had rewritten history, and the empire, once proud and rigid, began to bend not from fear, but from understanding, from respect, from the undeniable truth that humanity was capable of greatness beyond any magic. As night fell, the aviary glowed softly, lit by the last rays of the sun and the presence of dragons who had once been caged birds. Lena sang, her voice carrying across the floating palace, across cloud and sky, across hearts that had forgotten how to hope. The world had changed. It would never be the same again. Humans had triumphed not through violence, not through magic, not through fear. They had triumphed because of their courage, their compassion, and their unyielding heart. And the brothers, restored to their glory, never forgot the human who had taught them the greatest lesson of all. The quiet strength of one small voice could echo louder than the roar of empires. The empire listened. The world listened. And above all, the sky itself seemed to acknowledge the song, as if even the heavens had learned the power of humanity.